Okay, welcome. I'm excited to be sharing this information with you guys today. Let me get my slideshow going on. This is really exciting information for me because definitely something I've struggled with in my family, whether it's from, autism spectrum stuff, depression, anxiety, degenerative brain aging and things like that. So it's really good information to be aware of as we age, but also to protect our kids. So I want to kind of get right into what does a healthy brain look like? So that's, good memory, stable mood, plenty of energy, good sleep patterns, great problem solving skills. You can think under pressure, you have executive reasoning like problem solving. But executive reasoning is even more so, like being able to come up with new solutions and, coming up with systems and things like that. And they're finding that these days kids are having less executive reasoning because a lot of things are done for them and they don't have a lot of boredom time and they don't develop this executive reasoning as well. So the other thing that we need to look at and kind of understand is what are symptoms of a struggle. And some of these actually surprised me. Poor memory is one, brain fog, irritability, anxiety, depression, attention issues, cravings is a sign of a struggle in the brain, and I didn't realize that. Feelings of overwhelm, low energy, sleep disturbances, stressed easily, learning disabilities, and poor impulse control, and more. So I am sharing this information with you because this is a picture of me in my 20s, and I was struggling. I definitely had crazy food cravings. I had chronic fatigue, and I was mildly depressed just because I didn't feel like I was in control of my health, and I felt like I was on a downward spiral. And I should have been in, kind of peak health at the time. And now in my 40s, I don't have any of those issues. I was actually struggling with migraines as well. I was on 2 medications for migraines. And in my 40s, I don't have any of those issues because of this information that I learned, and I'm going to share that with you in a little bit. The first thing that I really like to kind of talk about with people is sugar. And sugar and the brain connection is really actually kind of devastating. There was this crazy low-fat craze back in the 50s. They started looking at, fat and sugar consumption, and there was actually a lot of research saying that sugar was very poor for the body. But actually, where our food is funded is also plays a role in kind of the education that we receive. And so there was a lot of money in the sugar industry at the time, and some of that research got buried and instead went into looking at fat and making things like, low saturated fat. So margarine was born. And I remember snack wells being something that was kind of popular with my mom. They were low fat and, but they had all this sugar, but it was healthy. It was like, oh, snack well, even though it's just a bunch of sugar, but it was fat free, right? So this whole low fat and fat free craze, really kind of began in the 50s, but it was pretty rampant in the 80s and 90s. So now we're finding that there's more information about fat out there, and I can get into that in a little bit, but really kind of understanding what sugar does, I think, is so important just so people can make, educated choices. So sugar triggers the same area of the brain that cocaine does, and it's just as addictive. It also damages the brain structure, function, and synaptic connection between brain cells, leading to Alzheimer's and dementia. For our kids, the picture is not great either. It alters the behavior in our kids, causes blood sugar imbalance, which then in turn causes stress hormones to increase in the body, making it so there's not the ability to focus as usual, and then increased irritability and more. And this was an interesting image for me. It was like, oh my gosh, really? Sugar really activates the same areas of the brain that cocaine does. It's a dopiate. What am I trying to say? It activates dopamine in the brain. And it's just as addictive, actually, and maybe a little bit more addictive than cocaine, which is crazy to me. I mean, we're putting this in our food all the time. One of the classes I teach is a nutrition detectives class. It's usually more of an in-person class. And I like to have all my participants sort of guess what decade these packaged foods were introduced. And I always say, don't don't be fooled by this. Looks kind of like more recent packaging, but these were some of the first packaged cereals on the market. And a lot of people guess, 60s, 70s. These were actually introduced in the 50s. And I find this really interesting because it's related to an animal study that I always cite. This is the only animal study I ever cite because I don't really think they're as relatable to us. But this was profound to me, and I'm kind of watching the same trend in humans. So they fed cats fast food, packaged meals, that sort of thing. And after the third generation, they could no longer reproduce. And if you think about the first packaged foods really being introduced in the 50s, that makes it so my mom, born in 1948, was the first generation to have it her whole life. I'm the second generation, and my kids will be the third. And look at the rates of infertility and disease rates and so many things skyrocketing. And I'm not saying that it's all packaged foods' fault, but it's pretty amazing when it can have that much of a profound effect on animals. What do we think it's going to be doing to us? So we really are what we eat. And I love to encourage people to just be aware of what we're putting in our bodies. I think that this is startling for me. I also have people in that nutrition detectives class guess how many packets of sugar in this small orange soda bottle. It's a tiny one that you would get out of the vending machine. And I get all kinds of guesses, but it's 22 packets. That's a lot of packets of sugar. That's, I think that's a teaspoon. It's 4 grams per packet. So it's about 75 grams of sugar in an orange soda. And, we would never stir that many packets of sugar into an iced tea, but we don't taste how sweet that is because it's artificially flavored and carbonated. And this is something that's important to be aware of because we shouldn't be consuming more than about 23 grams of sugar a day. And so if we're doing in just one soda, getting 75 grams, that's a huge detriment to our brain. And sugar, again, I just want to really illustrate for us what we're kind of looking at. It's not something that we've experimented with very long. Really, back in the turn of the century, the average consumption of sugar per year was about 4 pounds a year. And now today, it's about 130 to, some statistics say 250 pounds a year. So even if we're working with 130 pounds, that's 3,500 pounds a year. In our lifetime. That's a drastic, if you can see this bar graph, that's a drastic increase. And we're just starting to see the detrimental effects in our health and our brains, in our, what's shocking to me is we see all of these older diseases in kids now, like type 2 diabetes used to be called adult onset diabetes because only adults got it, and kids get it all the time now. So there really is something we need to do to change this vicious cycle. And I don't know if you guys are aware, but this is pretty interesting for me. When you eat sugar, you like it, you crave it, it has addictive properties, right? Dopamine is released in the brain. A mass of insulin is secreted into the system. And so the blood sugar levels actually drop to kind of manage all of that blood sugar. It's not good at all for the body. And then the blood sugar drops, and then it causes actually a low. And so that low, the body craves a sugar high again. And it's actually like this vicious cycle that we're really not that in charge of. And that's where we'll see that behavior in our kids. The low blood sugar levels cause the increased appetite and cravings. And then thus the cycle is repeated. And especially for kids that don't have as much willpower or, ability to reason with themselves, it's very important to be making choices. And I do, kind of want to point out that sugar is not the only, bad guy out there. We wouldn't be doing this with our kids, right? But the thing with the soda is it's actually high fructose corn syrup, and high fructose corn syrup tends to make people more hungry. It also makes them tired. It causes liver damage. And then the soda also has excitotoxins. And so there's a food class chemical called excitotoxins, and those are artificial flavors, artificial colors, MSG, artificial sweeteners. And those are all excitotoxins, and kids are 5 times as susceptible to these. They actually go to a specific area of the brain and overexcite it. And they're seeing excitotoxins leading to Parkinson's and MS. So definitely something to be aware of there. And again, if you guys kind of want a list of these ingredients, I have a great little one-page handout that kind of goes over some of the food chemicals that are added to our foods that are important to be avoided. I love that, the awareness in our society is increasing, and there are a lot of great companies out there that do packaged foods without a lot of toxins in them, and that's more and more. So we're really kind of on the cusp of a really exciting age, and I think there's just, again, more awareness, more companies out there, producing good products. So I'm not meaning to like scare people. Definitely there are good choices out there. As a certified health coach, I am super aware that it needs to be doable for families. You have to be able to, make one simple switch, like one Kraft mac and cheese for maybe Annie's mac and cheese. Annie's doesn't have the excitotoxins Kraft does. So just keeping it simple and not overwhelming ourselves, but that can have an amazing effect on our brain health. So I want to talk a little bit about insulin and kind of, again, having high, blood sugar is not that our brain is not the only thing affected. Our whole body is actually affected by that. So for our brain, it's related to low cognition, increased anxiety and depression, neurotransmitter interruption, and more. Chronically high blood sugar equals inflammation in the brain. And teenagers are especially susceptible to this. And I kind of think about that with myself as a teenager. I wasn't exposed to a lot of sugar when I was younger. We lived in the sticks, and when I was in high school, we moved into town, and so I was able to walk to the store with friends and get Skittles and all these other things. And my brain did have a reaction. I didn't realize it until, learning what I know now through my certification. But I did start kind of suffering from that chronic fatigue, like I said, and some of the depression and other things that were not going on for me. At the time, I thought, well, I'm just a teenager and everyone's going through that. But we are definitely, as parents, need to protect our kids from going through those cycles. And one of the things, too, I should back up for a minute. It's not that we can't ever eat sweets. For my kids, I'll tend to cook at home. I'll use coconut sugar, or I'll use there's actually sucanate sugar, which is just juiced and dried sugar cane. It's used 1-to-1 in baking, and it doesn't have some of the same effects on the body as processed sugar. Processed sugar is actually processed 27 times, and one of those processes is bleaching. And so it's to the point where our bodies can't recognize it. It actually can paralyze the immune system. It can really affect a lot of other things that are at play here. So again, simple switches. Honey is a great sweetener. Other things that you can use, more natural sweeteners, to still, be able to have a cookie or a baked item, as opposed to, being completely strict. So I hope that helps you guys. And then one of the other things I want to really kind of point out, again, it's all about cycles, and it's like the domino effect, right? One thing tips over the next thing, tips over the next thing. So what happens when the body gets used to insulin? We kind of know that. We know that that's diabetes. Well, the other thing is that it's, there's an overlap with dopamine and serotonin. So dopamine's released from the sugar, correct? And dopamine and serotonin are linked together. So when we also become resistant to dopamine or used to dopamine, we start getting things. This is a list of dopamine deficiencies, and then again they're interrelated. Excuse me. So this is a list of serotonin deficiencies. So definitely something just to be aware of, that it's not just one isolated situation. It's that our bodies are this whole complex system. And for me, it's interesting to see, we talk about dopamine. The other things that we think about dopamine release are electronics and other. Dopamine is a feel-good hormone that's released by things like sugar, electronics, all these different things that just are increased in our society today. So we have to know what to do to combat and look for, that dopamine, low levels of dopamine. And there's other ways to naturally increase dopamine that aren't as detrimental. Okay, again, I don't want to always paint a scary picture here, but it's definitely something to be aware of, these two connections. And, sometimes I feel like the mean mom, where I'm like, saying no to candy or no to sweets at a birthday or whatever. And we make choices wisely. We're not always perfect. So just as an example, for Halloween, we'll go out, we'll trick or treat, and my kiddos can eat. We tend to pick the candies that don't have hydrogenated oil in them. That's also fairly detrimental to the brain and other parts of the body. But they are able to eat as many of those candies as they want. And then the deal is that at the end of the night, we put out the rest of their candy for the great pumpkin. And the great pumpkin comes and takes the candy, and they get a toy basically by weight. If they put out a lot of candy, they get a bigger toy. If they put out a little candy, they get a littler toy. And that's kind of our technique to kind of deal with those, make some of that, holiday stuff fun, but at the same time not having sugar. Basically, I would say the cold and flu season should be titled the sugar holiday season, because it starts with Halloween. We're looking at, these are all the different things that sugar can do within 60 minutes of ingesting it. But one of the biggest things is it paralyzes the immune system for up to 6 hours. And so if you think about how much sugar we intake, starting with Halloween through Thanksgiving and Christmas, Valentine's, and then into Easter, it's so much more than we're consuming in the summertime. So really just be aware of that. And again, it's a whole body affair. So immune system, liver, it has a drastic effect on your GI and your gut, brain, and more. Okay. I'm hoping that the scary story's over. Just kidding. But these are some of my favorite natural sweeteners. And definitely understand that, if you are doing a cake or a muffin or something sweet, a sweet treat, there's also ways to kind of mitigate that blood sugar spike. So if you're adding fiber to the muffin that you're baking, if you're adding some healthy fats, all of that will actually slow the release of sugars into the system and make it a lower glycemic food. Glycemic index is really important for people with diabetes. It's the rate at which the sugar is released into the system. And so if you get a huge sugar spike, like with blood glucose levels go super high, again, we have the super low, and it's not the sustained thing, and it causes all kinds of issues in the body. If we have a low glycemic index food, it's this sustained energy that lasts quite, for a long time, and this bar graph goes farther. And then we actually have more control over our food choices because we feel satiated. We don't have the drastic highs and lows. And actually, willpower is directly related to your blood sugar level. So you'll make better food choices throughout the day by stabilizing your blood sugar. So again, fat, fiber, and protein added to baked goods and things will actually, be just as delicious, in my opinion, and then also not have the drastic effect on the brain and the rest of the body. Okay, so I'm not done with my scary story. I forgot I put these in here too. Again, sugar's not the only thing. We're also talking about things like hydrogenated oil. It's 1 molecule away from plastic, and it takes 100 days for it to circulate out of our body. And a chicken McNugget has 4 grams of hydrogenated oil. So if 1 gram takes 100 days to get out, and we're eating a package of chicken McNuggets, that's a huge detriment. And hydrogenated oil causes plaque in the brain, less cognition, and decreased brain size. So again, simple switches. We're not about being perfect, but they make healthy chicken McNuggets, not McNuggets, chicken nuggets in the freezer section, like at Trader Joe's or Whole Foods, or even the natural, like regular stores have a natural section. I think it's Applegate Farms makes a chicken nugget that doesn't have hydrogenated oil. So if your kid is in that picky stage and that's one of their favorite foods, again, there's simple switches, and I have a whole list of those. So if you're like stuck on one, like what do I switch for this? Have the person that invited you message me, and I can get you a list. And then fructose, definitely something to be aware of. Things that are high in fructose impair memory and cause problem-solving skills. That is not the case for sugar. For sugar and fructose in fruits, because they have the fiber and the phytonutrients that go along with it to be beneficial. It's things like high fructose corn syrup, isolated fructose, and things like that. Actually, agave has quite a bit of fructose. So it used to be considered healthy, but it's been shown to cause more issues. Okay, tuna, mercury in seafood is something to definitely be aware of. Reduce cognition. So eat wild salmon when possible. Things low in mercury, seafood low in mercury. Saturated fat can cause brain plaque and impair memory. So we're talking mostly animal fats here. There's more healthy saturated fat in certain things like coconut oil. It impairs learning and memory, and in as little as 10 minutes after eating it. So definitely something to be aware of. Processed food, the processed salt actually increases blood pressure and causes brain fog and cognition decline. So again, there's a lot of great companies out there that have some good choices. Fast food, actually, some of the research shows that 40% higher risk of depression in people that consume fast food. And copper and iron in supplements actually can block cell communication and lead to nerve cell death. So very important to pick your supplements wisely. Nutrients really are the building block of our children's brains. So what do we choose? I know I have picky kids. I tend to be a sneaky mom, and I will sneak in green stuff into their smoothie with, pineapple and blueberries, so it masks the flavor. But I know those, broccoli, kale, things like that are great building blocks for the brain. Healthy fats. I actually put a little bit of fish oil in my kids' smoothies. My son will eat salmon, but my middle daughter refuses. So just little ways to kind of sneak healthy things in. And again, if you need ideas there, I am so happy to help. This picture, when I was going through the research, was really shocking to me. This is the brain of an Alzheimer's sufferer, and this is a brain of a healthy human. So we really need to be, protecting our brains as we age, and I'll talk a little bit about that. So the easiest way to prevent Alzheimer's actually is to eat fruits and veggies, to go nuts and use it or lose it. So I like to kind of keep things simple like that, and I'll go into that into detail. So Alzheimer's, actually, they're finding is type 3 diabetes. Wish that would go away. Hopefully you guys can see that. And the number one way to protect the brain is a diet rich in fruits and veggies. And that was interesting for me because they see that with people with diabetes or sustained high levels of blood sugar, they're exponentially more at risk for Alzheimer's. So it's very important to kind of manage that sweet tooth again by maybe making some healthy treats at home that have more fiber and protein. And then definitely eating more fruits and vegetables. What's sad to me is that 90% of the food eaten in America is processed. So we have a very big gap between what we should be eating and what we are eating as a society. And this was interesting for me. Actually, our children are more harmed by poor diet than exposure to drug, alcohol, and tobacco combined. And this is the first generation of kids that has a shorter life expectancy than their parents. And for me as a mom, I tease that I'm a mom on a mission. I don't want to accept that statistic. I think that's not okay. And I think there's a lot we can do about that. And so I'm really excited to be just sharing this information with you. And if there's someone that you're thinking of that you want to be sharing this information with too, hopefully you'll either be listening to the recording and you can feel free to share that. I also do this talk once a month where you can ask questions at the end live. So definitely, if you are thinking of someone and want to be sharing this information, I encourage you to do so. Okay, now we get to the good news. The road to good health is actually really easy. There was 150 doctors that researched 4,500 studies, and the common denominator to what keeps us healthy is a diet rich in fruits and vegetables. We hear that all the time. I think it's kind of beat into us a little bit, and sometimes it seems easier said than done. Our brain, if we keep it simple, just think about our brain as being a garden. We need to water it, till it, rest it, and feed it. Not just eat your fruits and vegetables, right? We need to find ways to protect ourselves in doable ways. And I'll get into the eat fruits and vegetables in a second, but I do want to talk about hydration. Dehydration is also a known factor for dementia. And being properly hydrated reduces the risk of Alzheimer's, Parkinson, and Lou Gehrig's disease. So enough water is actually half your body weight in ounces of water a day. So at 140 pounds, I need to be drinking 70 ounces of water a day. So I hope that helps you kind of know how much we need to be drinking. And the tilling part is, getting our blood flowing, getting, oxygen to our brain and kind of, clearing out the cobwebs, so to speak. Exercise is so important, and it actually grows the size of the hippocampus, which is the center for memory and learning. It also grows areas of the cortex, which increases the ability to think. So that's really, really exciting. So again, if we're not perfect, there's always room for improvement, and the body has amazing ways to heal itself. And then, downtime is so important. And that is probably one of my biggest struggles. I'm super busy. And I think we kind of glorify busy in our society today. We don't take enough rest time. So actually research on naps, meditation, nature walks, and just downtime really increases productivity, replenishes attention, solidifies memories, and encourages creativity. So definitely get your downtime, and a nature time more is just as important. So this is what eating for a healthy brain looks like, eating the rainbow as much as possible. A diet rich in fruits and vegetables if you can. Again, if you need to be sneaky and just blend things, I am a huge fan of putting frozen, vegetables in my smoothie. It's not that you have to be constantly chopping and preparing and buying. You can get a lot of nutrition through frozen items. So make it simple for yourself. Also, things like seeds and nuts have amazing omegas and essential fats for the brain, olives, other things like beans, the fiber in beans and some of the other compounds in beans are so healthy for the brain. And then omegas in mercury-free fish as well. Okay, and definitely something I want to talk about. Our gut is our second brain. Sometimes our gut sends us more messages about what to eat than our brain sends to us. Well, I should say all the time. And they actually are seeing a huge gut-brain connection. So if you want to learn more about gut health, I actually do a talk on gut health as well. And it's very exciting because there's really profound breakthroughs as of 2012 in our understanding of the microbiome and our gut health that are changing the way we practice medicine. So very, very exciting information there too. Just know that the neurotransmitters are actually created in our gut. So our gut health is very, very important to our brain health. There's other aspects of that as well. But again, keeping it simple. For my kids, I have to remember to just, kind of make it fun. Like I joke that, fruits and vegetables are like ninjas in our body, and they go in and they fight the blues, and they fight bad guys in our tummies and keep the bugs away and stuff like that. So I just kind of keep it simple for them. And, really, I want to talk for a second about supplements. A lot of people bridge the gap with supplements, and it's definitely appropriate in a deficiency state. But in terms of replacing food, there is no way to replace it, because just as an example, we've only discovered 13 vitamins, and then handfuls of minerals and maybe some herbs. There's maybe 50 ingredients in a multivitamin at best. Well, an apple actually has 10,000 ingredients. This is 400 of the known ingredients in an apple, and it would take 26 pages to list everything in an apple. So there's a huge difference between a multivitamin and whole food. For me, again, as a busy mom, I want to kind of share what we do for supplements, because about 12 years ago, when my son here was 1, I took him to a specialist. He was showing early signs of autism, and I was really scared. So in terms of his brain health, I had migraines, I had the mild depression and crazy cravings, but his brain health was terrifying for me as a mom. He wasn't making eye contact. He was on the beige diet. He had, sensory stuff, didn't like to touch certain things. He was very, very picky eater. And so I actually flew him to a specialist in Baton Rouge, and she had her MD, her biochemistry degree, and her naturopathic doctorate. She was an autism specialist, and she really started teaching me about, getting enough nutrition in to combat some of the things that were going on for him. And I'm forever grateful to her, because she introduced a product called Juice Plus to us. I felt like I ate pretty healthy. We were primarily organic. But the unfortunate part was, it was the organic cookie. I mean, we had salads, I felt like we ate a pretty wide variety of things, but we still weren't getting enough of what we needed, even though I did a smoothie, and we did, try to get as many fruits and vegetables as we could, but there was gaps in our diet. And she shared with us a product called Juice Plus that is just juiced fruits and vegetables. And I want to back up for a second. If Juice Plus, if a supplement isn't for you and you're more of a purist, there is amazing ways to get more nutrition. You can go to the farmer's market if you have something like that available to you. For me, living here in Nevada, it's very difficult to get fresh things. You know, for instance, a green bean loses all of its vitamin C within 24 hours of picking. It's just a random factoid in my head. But by the time, you know, we're picking things as farmers, they're picking things before they're ripe so they can, you know, survive transport. Then they're stored on the supermarket shelf. Then it's in our fridge. And we have to pretty much, it feels like eat it that same day. But at the time, you know, you're thinking about, you know, maybe a week or 2 weeks since it's been picked. There's a lot of nutrients lost in that process. So I love that there's this company that it's actually a tower garden. It's an aeroponic growing system that can grow amazing 20 different plants. If you get the extension, I think it's 28 different plants in these little aeroponic pods. And so it's actually ionic earth minerals down in the base that are on a pump that circulate and perfectly water and give those ionic earth minerals for nutrients to the plants every 15 minutes. And it's really exciting. It's been a fun project for my son. We have been using the Tower Garden for 5 years now. I've kind of put this out of order. We started on Juice Plus when he was 1. So we were getting his body the nutrition from concentrated nutrition from fruits and vegetables. I would mix it into his applesauce, or I'd hide it in a smoothie. And it was like within a few months, a light bulb went back on. He started making eye contact, and he actually started reaching for foods that he never would have touched before, like a tomato. He asked if he could have a tomato, and he ate it like it was an apple. And just the seeds and the juice of the tomato in the past would have totally wigged him out. But it's actually a process called bio-reconditioning. When we're giving our bodies, or our children's bodies, a little bit of what it needs, it starts craving more of that good thing. So it's, again, that's why I'm all in favor of being a sneaky mom and hiding things in things for them to kind of get that nutrition, start changing their taste cravings through that bio-reconditioning and getting more nutrition. And so actually today he is a bright 13-year-old. He's just funny as heck and super imaginative. He has had some sensory processing issues, but very, very mild. And I cannot imagine what it would have been like if we hadn't found this simple solution. This is him in one of his homeschooling projects, photobombing his purple cauliflower. But so again, I put this out of order a little bit, but so Tower Garden is great. If you are a purist and you do eat a lot of fruits and vegetables already, but you might want to have an option to grow your own, to pick it, you know, and eat it right then and there and get all of that nutrition, the Tower Garden is a great way to go. Juice Plus, if you don't want to be an urban farmer like me, just kidding, is an awesome solution. It is something that I'm so grateful for. You know, we travel all the time. We don't always have the ability to do prep. Even when we are home and have the ability to food prep, we know that we're getting the wide variety of 30 different fruits, veggies, and berries every single day. I love that it is a whole food product. I'm very confident in sharing with this. I got my health coaching certification through Dr. Sears, and Juice Plus is the only product he recommends to his clients. Because it really is just food. It has a food label like a bag of spinach. It has just the nutrients that are required by law to be on a food label. Again, it has all of those different tens of thousands of phytonutrients, so you couldn't possibly put everything on the label. But it's also just that power pack nutrition. So what they do is they pick it same day, juice it, freeze it within hours of picking, and then it goes to the encapsulation facility in those frozen juice. In that frozen juice, and then from the frozen juice to powders within seconds in a proprietary process, that the salt and sugar actually crystallizes larger in that process and is filtered out. So it's all the benefits of juicing without the sugar load. So this is huge for people with diabetes. It's also non-GMO, dairy-free, gluten-free, and then third-party tested. So for purity, that's super important because not a lot of supplements are tested. And actually only 1% of supplements pass NSF certification. So NSF is a company, a third party comes and pulls random batches of Juice Plus to be sure that it's free of pesticides, herbicides, heavy metals, pharmaceuticals. Oh my gosh, the list goes on. Also the clinical research on top of that is actually the most researched nutritional product in the world, bar none, with 30, I think it's almost 38 studies at this point, which are majority of them are double-blind, placebo-controlled, randomized, and peer-reviewed and published. So it's the gold standard of research, all third-party. Juice Plus has nothing to do with the design or the outcome. And again, with that double-blind, placebo-control and randomized, it's truly unbiased research. And I love the research. And again, this is just the power of fruits and vegetables. if you go out and you start eating more fruits and vegetables, you figure out how to sneak it into your kids' diet. I am so happy. That's the mission of my heart, and definitely, helping people understand what the power of, to have the body heal itself. But I love this research because it really just points out what nutrition can do for us. So things like, increased cardiovascular wellness, they've seen it totally negate the detrimental effects of a high-fat meal, supports the healthy inflammatory response. They see it bring down whole body systemic inflammation, and that's the root cause of a lot of different diseases, whether it's cancer, diabetes, Alzheimer's, all of those things start with inflammation in the body. Supports quality of life in cancer survivors. This was an incredible study at MD Anderson. Reduced insulin resistant in overweight boys. This was a study funded by Nemours, and it's an incredible study. This is really exciting information to see that these pre-diabetic boys they had reduced abdominal fat, better nutrient markers, and then were utilizing insulin more. So basically backing themselves out of pre-diabetic conditions. So this was really exciting. And we've seen, in our experience with Juice Plus and clients of mine having type 2 diabetes, coming off of, as much insulin, or even if they were pre-insulin dependent, actually backing out of type 2 altogether. So it's very, very exciting. Supports lung health in smokers. We have one smokers health study that shows that it can negate the detrimental effects of smoking. I don't really like to share that with people that are smoking because I want them to, to quit anyway. That's just, we don't need to add to our oxidative load. But again, it's not about being perfect. And if that's something that is a stuck habit, then at least protect yourself. So definitely know that there's some great information there. Supports healthy skin and gums, supports immune system health. That's another thing that's on the rise with infertility. It's autoimmune disorders. And I love that Juice Plus is proven to balance the immune system within 80 days. And that's profound. So not only does it bring the B cells back into balance, but it also brings up the natural killer in the T cells. So it's like the generals, or I should say teachers. We have a teacher on the line here. Enough teachers to balance out all the kindergartners that are going out and wrecking things in the body. Also reduces oxidative stress. That's huge. And the main reason that the specialist recommended it for Gabe, because kids on the spectrum have an overwhelmingly large amount of oxidative stress, and Juice Plus reduces oxidative stress by 75%, which is, again, amazing and such a blessing. And then 18 studies showing that it's bioavailable, not only absorbed into the body, into the bloodstream, and also gets into the cell to do good work. And I love that Juice Plus is a very charitable company. They actually give Juice Plus away free for kids between the ages of 4 and 18, and even full-time undergraduate students. I think the cap age is 25. And this is the largest longitudinal study of its kind. They actually have seen kids, and this is for 4 years. They get their Juice Plus with an adult order. An adult can sponsor any child of their choosing for 4 years. And they see things like they're eating more fruits and vegetables, which is definitely the result that my son had. Saying no to fast food, drinking more water, getting sick less, taking less medication. We've seen kids with asthma coming off of asthma medication. Kids on ADD medication, coming off of ADD medication. So very, very exciting. There are complete shakes too. That's something that's an easy solution. Having breakfast is super important. I love that it's low glycemic. Again, same glycemic index as broccoli, but it is kind of a nice, it's a sweet treat. It does taste delicious, but it has so much fiber and protein that it slows that glycemic load. Vegan, non-GMO, gluten-free, dairy-free, plant-based protein, and it's actually a powerful prebiotic. So it actually helps the good guys in your gut. And, having that zone of willpower, like I said, is so important. Definitely related to your food choices throughout the day. And we're actually super low blood sugar in the morning. So we need to stabilize just for our mood in general. We need to immediately have breakfast to stabilize our blood throughout the day. And then also we usually burn up most of our amino acids at night doing repair. So if we're not putting a little protein in our body at first thing in the morning, we're burning through our lean muscle mass. So definitely know that breakfast is important, even if you don't feel like doing it. Sometimes I just run out the door, shake up, and this is naughty, I shake up a little coffee in my complete vanilla powder, and it's like my healthy latte on the go. Okay, so what does it cost? The other thing that I love about Juice Plus, it is very affordable. So the trio is the combination of 30 different juiced fruits and veggies and berries. and it's less than $2.50 a day. Our shakes are another 15 plants, and those are $1 or $2 a shake. So with the combination, if you did both, it would be 45 plants in your diet every single day. So that's huge. That's just amazing nutrition, way more than we tend to get on a daily basis. And I say, for anyone that is eating a lot of fruits and vegetables and still feels like there's a deficiency, then you just might need to supplement. And for me, Juice Plus Bar None is my first choice. But again, I am just so appreciative of your time. I hope you guys learned some fun things today, and that you can go out there and share this information if something excited you and you want to, bless people with this information. Definitely invite you to do so, and I'm always open for questions. So I'm going to stop the recording.